Juwon feels the weight of his recent actions as he contemplates their next move in the middle of the quiet woods. Lizzie finds comfort in the presence of the man who saved her family from a truly desperate situation. The two share an emotional and silent embrace as the adrenaline from their recent battle finally begins to fade away. Juwon has pushed himself to the limit to ensure their survival, and the physical toll of the fight is clearly visible on him. Juwon humbles himself by telling her that he is the one who is actually grateful for their presence in his life. Lizzie is completely stunned by his sincerity, because she never expected such kindness from a man with his level of power. Dorothy feels absolutely overwhelmed by the terrifying chaos happening outside, while she waits for someone to come save her. Lizzie suddenly remembers that her daughter is still alone, and directs Juwon back toward the house with a sense of extreme urgency. She does not waste a single second and sprints back to the house to ensure that the little girl is safe and sound. Lizzie finds the child in a state of shock and immediately tries to provide the emotional support she needs to feel safe again. It breaks Liz's heart to see the child so traumatized, because she knows exactly how terrifying their situation has become lately. Dorothy is desperately hoping for the nightmare to end, as she struggles to process the intense fear currently gripping her heart. The little girl is haunted by the memory of the overwhelming violence she saw when Juwon fought to protect them from their enemies. She is terrified that she will eventually end up covered in bruises, just like all the other adults she has known in her life. Dorothy realizes she needs to apologize to Lizzie immediately, because she is afraid of being treated like a ghost again by her family. The two of them share a deeply bonding moment as they realize that they are the only family they have left in this world. Dorothy is overcome with emotion and looks up with the hope that she might finally be allowed to live in true peace. Lizzie is left completely bewildered by the child's unexpected question and pulls her close while asking what on earth she is talking about. Lizzie finally allows herself to be vulnerable and shares in the heavy emotions that have been building up throughout this difficult day. The child finds a brief moment of peace in the middle of the chaos, while still trying to process everything that has happened. Then she says something that catches Lizzie completely off guard. She says they are okay because Papa is here, and Lizzie just freezes in place and asks who she is even talking about. Lizzie is genuinely confused and asks the kid if she even knows who Juwon really is. To Dorothy, he is not just a protector, he is the father figure she never actually had growing up. Lizzie finds the idea heartwarming and realizes how much the child has come to trust their powerful protector in such a short time. Dorothy is completely serious about her new discovery and does not understand why the adults are finding her realization so amusing. Lizzie is momentarily speechless as she tries to wrap her head around the fact that the child has already chosen a new father figure. Dorothy is filled with a new sense of belonging and declares her intention to the entire world with absolute and total confidence. Out in the woods, Juwon walks away, probably thinking about their next move. He has no idea that he just got adopted by the most adorable little girl on the entire planet. Dorothy is suddenly filled with energy and looks around with a new sense of purpose, now that she finally feels safe. Lizzie feels a wave of relief, knowing that their protector has given the child a reason to look forward to the future. Dorothy remembers the incredible strength Juwon displayed and understands that his power is the only thing keeping them alive right now. Dorothy is no longer afraid of the outside world and eagerly looks out to find the person she trusts most in this place. She claims her new father figure by calling out to him with every bit of strength she has left in her small body. To the little girl, Juwon is a legendary hero who is strong enough to keep any monster or villain at bay for good. Dorothy runs out into the grass with a heart full of hope as she leaves her past fears behind her once and for all. In her heart, she knows he would never hurt her because she remembers how he holds them both tight at night. He makes sure they can sleep in peace and finally feel safe. Dorothy feels a profound sense of love and security now that she has found someone who truly cares for her well-being. Juwon has provided more than just food and shelter by giving the child a brand new identity and a sense of worth. She's absolutely beaming now because having a dad who loves her this much is the best thing she could ever imagine. Juwon is caught off guard by the child's affection and realizes the true importance of the role he now plays in her life. She yells for her papa with everything she has got, and the joy in her voice is unmistakable. Our boy watches as his little girl runs straight into his arms, while his whole world narrows down to her. He opens his arms wide and gets ready to catch her like he has done 1,000 times before. They share a massive hug under the twilight sky, and for a moment everything else in the world just stops existing. It is a rare moment of peace for our boy. Our boy holds her tight and looks a bit overwhelmed by how much this tiny person means to him. He picks her up and carries her through the woods like she is the most precious treasure in existence. Ho-yi finally picks the little girl up to carry her home, but he suddenly catches a whiff of a very strange scent coming from her. He checks the back of her dress and starts to realize that his daughter might have had a messy little accident in the woods. Dorothy just gives him this cheeky grin like she has no idea what he is talking about. Honestly, kids are the same in every world. Right then, the mother comes sprinting out to join them, and she looks just as relieved to see them safe and sound. It is a full-on family cuddle session now, and you can tell these three mean everything to each other. Dorothy peeks over his shoulder, and her eyes light up when she spots something interesting in the distance. She wriggles out of his arms and starts sprinting toward a wooden bucket because she knows exactly what is waiting inside. She zooms across the grass toward her prize while ignoring the bunch of thugs who are lying face down in the background. She is moving with a level of determination you only see in a kid who is about to get their favorite snack. She finally reaches the bucket and stares down at the giant slabs of raw meat with pure awe and excitement. Our little girl puts her whole soul into dragging this giant wooden bucket because she is determined to move the heavy thing on her own. She puts her entire body weight into the struggle and refuses to let the weight of the meat stop her from reaching the house. Her parents come running after her in a panic because they never expected their daughter to go on a solo mission for groceries. She is turning bright red and gritting her teeth as she refuses to give up on this mountain of meat. Ho-yi can only watch in total disbelief as the tiny girl manages to haul a mountain of raw meat across the yard using her freakish strength. The mother starts laughing at the whole situation, while our boy just stands there processing the sheer chaos of their domestic lives. He eventually steps in to help her out since she was about to tumble right into the bucket herself. He lifts the whole thing up, and Dorothy lets out a cheer of pure victory that echoes through the forest. Seeing her this excited over a meal makes all the trouble he went through totally worth it. Her eyes are literally sparkling as she looks at him with total admiration for being the man who provides the goods. He realizes that for a child, a bucket of meat is basically like winning the lottery. The mother claps her hands and tells them both to get inside because it is getting dark and dangerous out in the woods. They head back into their stone cabin while the woods grow quiet and the tension starts to rise again. Our boy lets out a long sigh of relief once the door is safely shut behind them. He heads back outside alone to deal with the aftermath and looks down at the intruders who are still groaning on the ground. His face turns cold and his eyes start to glow with that terrifying energy he usually keeps hidden from his family. Suddenly he finds himself face to face with a mysterious old man in a green cloak who has been watching from the shadows. Ho-yi is having a serious heart-to-heart with the old man in the green cloak. The old guy is laying down the law, telling our boy that he simply cannot go around beating or killing people anymore. Ho-yi takes a second to reflect on those words. He knows getting arrested or sold back into slavery would be a total disaster for the quiet life he is trying to build. The brunette woman takes a moment to reflect on her new life and feels a sense of peace knowing she is no longer alone. But a dark promise lingers in his mind. He knows if his past ever catches up to him, it is going to be a struggle that makes death look like a mercy. The old man gives him a firm pat on the chest, basically telling him to get moving. He points the way, sending Ho-yi back to the family that actually needs him. Our protagonist gathers up his gear, including a heavy wooden crate filled with blacksmithing tools. This is his new life, far away from the carnage he used to know. He finally makes it home and pauses at the door. Inside, his wife is sitting on the floor, cradling their little girl in a moment of pure, quiet peace. Honestly, seeing him this soft hits different. Ho-yi lets out a warm smile, feeling that heavy burden lift from his shoulders. He is carrying his haul for the day, finally ready to step into his role as a provider. He sets the crate down and gets to work, kneeling on the floor of their modest home. Every movement is careful, showing how much he cherishes this simple domesticity. He knows that if he loses this family he has built then, he will truly lose everything that matters to him. Losing a family once was a trauma he never wants to repeat. That kind of heartbreak is more than enough for several lifetimes. He has finally found a reason to move forward and will cherish every single second of this peaceful existence. This moment of pure joy is something he never thought possible after everything he endured in his dark past. No matter what happens or what threats come for them, he is staying right here. He waves to his wife and daughter, and they wave back, completely unaware of the monster he used to be. Lizzie reaches out and gently touches a bruise on our boy's face. He thinks to himself that if he actually used his magic, he could make injuries like this vanish in a heartbeat. But for now, he is playing it cool and keeping his powers hidden while he tries to stay undercover in this tiny town. Lizzie is being super sweet, squishing his cheeks while they enjoy a quiet moment together. He lets her do whatever she wants because he is totally whipped for her. It is kind of wholesome to see him finally relaxing after everything he has been through. Look at that face. Our boy is just standing there with this goofy grin while Lizzie treats him like a stuffed animal. He looks slightly embarrassed, but he is definitely not complaining about the attention. Suddenly, he decides to flip the script and scoops Lizzie up into his arms. She looks shocked, but also a little bit impressed by his sudden display of strength. He is making moves, and she is clearly not ready for it. He sweeps her off her feet in a classic Princess Carrie and holds her close. Lizzie is completely caught off guard by how effortless he makes it look. Honestly, he is playing the part of the devoted husband a bit too well. Classic Isekai move right here. Our protagonist looks down at her with a serious expression, but he is actually sweating a little bit inside. He has to make sure he does not accidentally reveal too much of his true strength while he is trying to be romantic. Lizzie is completely flustered, and her face is turning a bright shade of red. She clutches her chest like she is trying to keep her heart from jumping out. Our boy is a natural charmer when he wants to be. They share a long look that is filled with tension and unspoken feelings. It is clear that Lizzie is falling for him hard, and he is definitely leaning into the role. If you have read this far, you know how dangerous this chemistry can be. He gives her this bright and confident smile that could probably light up the entire room. He knows exactly what he is doing to her heart right now. He is just having way too much fun with this fake life. Lizzie is left standing there completely speechless and dazed. She looks like her brain just short-circuited from that one smile. He really is out here playing the perfect husband while hiding a world of secrets. The sun rises over a quiet mountain village filled with cozy cottages and rolling green hills. It looks like a peaceful place where nothing bad could ever happen, but we know better than that. A white chicken gets a sudden wake-up call as a foot comes flying out of nowhere. The bird goes flying in a panic with feathers everywhere. It is a small detail that shows the people here are not exactly the kindest souls. We meet the village chief and his wife who are having a heated argument in the middle of the yard. The woman looks furious while the chief just stands there with his arms crossed. They clearly have a lot of tension between them. They are talking about the new guy in town, and they are not exactly singing his praises. The wife is complaining about something, and the chief is starting to look annoyed. These two are definitely going to be a problem. The chief watches a chicken wander by while he thinks about how our boy carries himself. He notes that the guy looks like someone who is very used to fighting. His instincts are telling him that there is something off about their new resident. The wife is getting even more worked up and starts gesturing wildly at the chief. She is worried about their secret dealings being discovered. They have been skimming off the village funds for a while, and they are paranoid. She thinks back to something she saw the day before that really bothered her. It was a detail that did not make any sense at the time. She is convinced that she saw something she was not supposed to see. In a flashback, the chief remembers seeing deep beast bite wounds on Ho Yi's arm that were not there before. The weirdest part is that they were already healing right before his eyes. That is not normal for a regular person, even with medicine. The chief realizes that his assistant was right about everything. He stares at the memory of those bite marks and thinks about the impossible speed of the recovery he witnessed. He knows he has stumbled onto something big that is potentially very valuable for his own future. The truth finally hits him like a ton of bricks. The guardian is actually a mage, and not just any mage, but a healing mage. In this world, a healer is a literal gold mine for whoever controls them. He stands there deep in thought with his hand on his chin. You can practically see the greed reflecting in his eyes as he plans his next move. He is not thinking about the safety of the village anymore. He looks up at the sky and starts imagining a life of luxury far away from this dirt path. He sees the high spires of a grand city in his mind. He is already spending money that he has not even made yet. A beautiful and grand mansion appears in his imagination. This is the kind of status he dreams about every single day. He is tired of being a mere village chief and wants to join high society. Look at that creepy smile on his face. He is convinced that if everything goes well, he can finally escape this boring life and live like a noble. Greed is a hell of a drug, and this guy is overdosing. Bro is making the worst possible choice right here. The village chief walks through the dark streets, surrounded by the silhouettes of the townspeople. He is plotting something sinister, and believes that these uneducated fools will never catch onto his scheme. He imagines the worst-case scenario where armored knights or powerful guilds swoops in. If the nobles find out there is a healer here, they will take him immediately. The chief would not see a single coin from the discovery if that happens. He turns back to his wife and explains that they need to be extremely careful. They have to play this perfectly if they want to get rich. The wife looks hesitant, but she is starting to see the potential profit in his plan. She is still sweating because she knows how risky this is. If our boy figures out that they are skimming from the village or trying to sell him out, things will turn ugly fast. They are playing with fire and they know it. The thought of being caught for their financial crimes keeps her on edge. They have been taking a little bit off the top for a long time. If a powerful mage is around, their secrets might be exposed. The chief points out that our boy seems very fond of his new wife, Lizzie. She is the perfect leash to keep him tied to this village and under their thumb. As long as he loves her, the chief has all the leverage he needs. The wife turns around and starts walking away to go back to her chores. She is going to follow the plan, but she clearly does not feel good about it. This whole family dynamic is getting more toxic by the minute. The chief stands alone outside the house, looking quite satisfied with himself. He thinks he is the one in control of the situation. He is in for a rude awakening very soon. He really believes he is the main character of this story. The chief stoops down to gather some dry twigs and sticks scattered across the grass. He is preparing for something big and needs fire to get his plan moving forward. He tosses the wood into a small outdoor fireplace and watches the flames catch. It is a simple chore, but it feels symbolic of the fire he is about to start in this village. He is fueling his own ambition with every stick. A bright orange fire roars to life in the stone hearth as the dry wood begins to crackle. This isn't just a cozy campfire. It's the start of a much more dangerous sequence of events for our heroes. The village chief stands amidst the flickering flames with a chilling smile on his face. He is convinced that a little sacrifice is necessary to get what he really wants. Talk about a guy who is definitely planning something devious behind the scenes. This dude is giving off major final boss energy for a tutorial area. Meanwhile, the dark atmosphere lingers as the weight of the chief's words settles over the quiet village. Back at the hut, the morning sun is shining, and someone is humming a cheerful little tune. It is a total shift from the creepy fire scene we just left. You can see a massive pile of firewood and stones stacked up outside the home. Our boy Lee Ho-yi is the one humming as he gets ready for the day and throws on his gear. He seems to be in a surprisingly good mood, despite being stuck in this weird situation. Seeing him, this relaxed makes me think the calm before the storm is coming. Lizzie is on the floor busy, organizing all the supplies and ingredients they managed to get back. She looks totally absorbed in her task as she checks through the bags and containers. It is the first time she has looked this peaceful in a long time. Our protagonist watches her and wonders how getting back some old belongings and basic food can make her this happy. She is literally glowing with joy while holding a bag of flour and a bottle of milk. It is a sweet moment that shows how much she missed her normal life. Lee Ho-yi watches the girl and finds himself wearing a soft smile for once. Seeing her simple joy over the small things reminds him that even in a world this crazy, there are still moments of genuine happiness. He walks over to her, and she looks up with those big eyes clearly sensing his presence. The atmosphere between them is so wholesome right now that you almost forget they are in a literal death game. They stand there for a second, just taking in the moment before he heads out for his next task. She looks up at him with so much trust that it is actually kind of heartwarming. They have this cute back and forth where they point fingers at each other like total dorks. This is peak sibling energy, and I am here for it. Lee Ho-yi waves goodbye as he steps out into the sunlight for the day. He mentions that a guy named Gus is going rabbit hunting today, and he needs to go help out. It sounds like a simple chore, but nothing is ever simple for our protagonist. He walks past the firewood he worked so hard on as he heads toward the forest. Even though life here feels cozy, he knows he cannot afford to get too comfortable. His mind conjures a bizarre image of a little blonde girl dancing around while gleefully brandishing a pair of bones. It is a weirdly dark thought that completely ruins the wholesome mood he was just feeling. Our boy starts sweating as he grips his small hatchet, looking incredibly conflicted about the hunting trip. He is definitely overthinking the whole concept of catching a rabbit. He shakes his head vigorously to try and get those distracting thoughts out of his brain. He needs to focus on the task at hand, instead of letting his imagination run wild. The problem is that whenever he thinks of a cute, fluffy white rabbit, he just sees Lizzie with bunny ears. This mental image is way too adorable for a guy who is supposed to be hunting them for food. Bro is suffering from success in the imagination department. He covers his face while blushing, clearly embarrassed by where his mind just went. It is pretty hilarious seeing this elite warrior get defeated by the thought of a cute bunny girl. He heads into the deep forest and admits that if they do catch a rabbit, he hopes it is hideous. That way he won't feel bad about the whole situation. Watch this come back to bite him in 3 chapters. Deep in the shadows of the forest, a massive predator begins to stir. As Ho-yi worries about catching cute bunnies, something much more dangerous has already picked up his scent and is starting its hunt. Lee Ho-yi stepped outside the wooden house and let out a heavy sigh to clear his head. The morning sun was just starting to filter through the trees. Nearby stood a neatly stacked pile of firewood with an old axe resting against it. He had spent a lot of physical effort getting everything ready for the day. Looking down at his hands, Lee Ho-yi marveled at how quickly he had adapted to his new reality. Since yesterday, healing cuts and minor wounds had easily become second nature to him. He could not help but remember that one critical moment from his past. A burning memory flashed in his mind, making him wonder how he had managed to pull off such a feat back then. A single bead of sweat rolled down his face as he focused his mind. He knew he had to try replicating that intense power again. Taking a deep breath, our protagonist puffed out his chest to steady his rapidly beating heart. He needed absolute focus to summon his magical energy. Our boy thrust his hand forward with a serious expression on his face. He muttered that he was not disappointed since he was not expecting much from his first try anyway. Even though he tried to act cool, his hand slumped down in disappointment. It was frustrating when things did not go exactly as planned. He imagined himself proudly showing off his magic to Lizzie and the little blonde girl. In his mind, they would both be absolutely starstruck by his cool display of power. Shaking off the silly daydream, Lee Ho-yi let out a quiet sigh. Reality was often much more underwhelming than his wild imagination. Suddenly, a strange sensation tickled his fingertips. Small orange sparks began to crackle and dance across his hand. These sparks burst into a tiny flash of light. It was a small but promising sign of magical activation. A proud smirk spread across his face as a small flame successfully bloomed on his index finger. He had actually managed to summon fire. Just then, the little blonde girl stepped out of the wooden house, rubbing her sleepy eyes. She was still wearing her oversized white nightshirt as she looked around. Squinting through her sleepiness, the young child tried to clear her blurry vision. Something bright in the yard had caught her attention. The little blonde girl opened her eyes wide as she woke up from her nap. Her gaze locked onto something bright and flickering, completely stealing her attention. Pointing her tiny finger in absolute excitement, the little kid let out a loud shout of pure joy. She had never seen anything so magical and wanted to investigate immediately. The toddler rushed over and grabbed his arm, staring intensely at the dancing fire. Lee Ho-yi looked down at her with a surprised but gentle expression as she investigated. She couldn't help but grasp his hand, staring in absolute wonder at the tiny flame dancing right before her eyes. The little blonde girl let out a happy gasp, completely charmed by the magic trick. Hearing the loud commotion, Lizzie came running out of the wooden house to check on them. She immediately stopped in her tracks when she noticed the glowing, magical light in the yard. Lizzie gasped in pure shock, covering her mouth with both her hands. She had not expected him to actually possess such magical abilities. While both of them marveled at his achievement, Li Houyi felt a bit self-conscious. He secretly wished he could have conjured a much bigger and grander flame for them, but this was his current limit. He comforted himself with the thought that he could at least use 2 types of magic now. He hoped to summon a much more elegant flame in the future. Lizzie continued to stare at him with wide eyes, still completely stunned by the revelation. She could barely process what she had just witnessed. Suddenly, Lizzie spun around and dashed away in a massive hurry. Both Li Houyi and the little blonde girl were left standing there, completely baffled by her abrupt reaction. Lizzie sprinted back inside the wooden house as fast as her legs could carry her, and the curious little blonde girl immediately chased after her to see what was going on. Standing out in the grassy field, Li Houyi focused his energy to keep the tiny flame burning steadily on his finger. He wanted to see how long he could maintain this simple spell without losing control. He waved his hand slightly, watching the tiny flame flicker in the gentle breeze. It was small, but it was still his own creation. The warm flame danced gracefully over his fingertips before slowly beginning to fade away. His magical energy was starting to run out. With a final quiet puff, the flame completely vanished, leaving behind only a few fading golden sparkles. His first real magic test was officially over. Feeling a bit drained from the exertion, he let out a tired sigh and slowly walked back toward the entrance of the house. Stepping through the open doorway, our protagonist immediately noticed a strange, rustling sound coming from the corner. He looked up in surprise, wondering what the others were doing inside the house. To his surprise, the little blonde kid was trying her absolute best to climb straight into a large wooden water barrel. She gripped the tall rim with her tiny hands, struggling to hoist herself up. The little blonde girl looked back with a sad expression as she struggled to climb up. She was clearly unhappy about having to go along with this strange game of hide-and-seek. She successfully squeezed herself inside the empty barrel, looking a bit sullen. Lizzie stood right next to her, giggling softly at the adorable sight, while Li Houyi stared in total disbelief. Li Houyi prepared himself for the day ahead, keeping a calm but serious expression despite the cheerful promise of bringing back rabbit meat. He knew this trial was not going to be simple. Stepping out of the house, our protagonist noticed a mysterious figure waiting nearby. The old man in the green cloak was surprised to see him up so early. Standing in the forest path with a wooden staff, the old hunter greeted him. He looked like an experienced guide who knew these woods inside and out. Li Houyi adjusted his hunting gear, tightening the leather straps on his chest. It was time to head out and face whatever the trial had in store for him. Before leaving, Li Houyi turned back to look at his family. Lizzie stood by the door in her blue dress, accompanied by a sweet little blonde girl waving goodbye. Gently patting the little girl's head, our boy gave her a warm smile. She giggled happily under his touch, completely brightened by his gentle gesture. Turning his attention to Lizzie, Li Houyi offered a soft, reassuring smile. He wanted to make sure they did not worry about him while he was away hunting. Lizzie leaned in and gave him a sweet kiss on the lips to send him off safely. The little girl watched them with her eyes wide open in pure surprise. The little blonde girl made an adorable, pouty face, blowing out her cheeks in mock disapproval of their public display of affection. She was just too cute to handle. Kneeling down to the little girl's level, Li Houyi tried to cheer her up while Lizzie laughed softly at their silly interaction in the background. Our protagonist planted a loving kiss on the little girl's cheek, instantly melting away her pout. She beamed with absolute joy, hugging him tightly. She playfully giggled and told him that his breath smelled like meat, accusing him of sneaking bites of food earlier. Lizzie watched the heartwarming scene, completely filled with happiness as they shared one last laugh before his departure. Deep in the lush green forest, the old hunter walked alongside Li Houyi, pointing out tracks left behind on the dirt trail. Small round droppings scattered on the ground confirmed that their target was extremely close. Staring down at the tracks, our boy focused his mind, analyzing the path the creature took. He had to stay sharp and treat this simulation with utmost seriousness. The old man suddenly gestured toward a nearby clearing, indicating that they had successfully cornered their prey. He moved stealthily, keeping his voice down. Lee Ha-yi narrowed his eyes, locking his gaze onto the thick bushes ahead. His heart beat steadily as he prepared himself to draw his weapon. Peering through the foliage, our boy was stunned to see a massive rabbit caught in a rope snare. Except this was no ordinary bunny. It was giant and stood upright like a kangaroo, leaving him deeply confused. He sweat-dropped, wondering if this fantasy world had rabbits that somehow evolved into kangaroos. The bizarre anatomy of the creature was definitely not what he expected. Suddenly the beast snarled, exposing sharp fangs and glowing yellow eyes. Its savage expression made it clear that this creature was far from harmless. The old hunter stepped closer to the trapped monster, explaining that it had been caught in the snare for a very long time. He assured Lee Ha-yi that it was the perfect prey for a beginner. A creepy smirk crept onto the old man's face as he looked back at our boy. His dark expression made the simple hunt feel incredibly unsettling. He claimed that hunting a trapped animal that cannot fight back was an essential lesson. To him, the thrilling rush of a first hunt was something that would never fade, no matter how old they grew. Pointing directly at the trapped creature, the old hunter urged our boy to take his first shot. Lee Ha-yi reluctantly prepared his bow and arrow, ready to begin the hunt despite his growing doubts. Placing a hand over his chest, our boy felt a strange heaviness. Something about this scenario felt completely unnatural, but he had to keep moving forward. The old hunter kept talking, guiding the young man through the process of taking down the beast. He wanted him to do something very specific. Meanwhile, the trapped kangaroo rabbit thrashed against its bindings, its glowing yellow eyes fixed directly on its captors. It was starting to get agitated. The old man instructed him to aim for the creature's legs first, which immediately caught our boy off guard. He could not understand why they would torture a trapped animal instead of ending it quickly. Lee Ha-yi looked deeply troubled as he held his bow. The system seemed to be testing his cruelty, wanting a target that would scream in agonizing pain. The old hunter stood back, explaining that nature does not take sides. He warned that committing a cruel act would trigger a reaction, almost as if he was pushing Lee Ha-yi to make a terrible mistake. With a heavy heart, our boy notched the arrow to his bowstring. He had to make a choice, and the pressure was building up. Drawing the bowstring back, he realized that shooting the legs would only cause immense suffering without actually killing the beast. It was a sick game. Sweat poured down his face as he aimed his glowing arrow. He still had no idea why the old guide was forcing him into this cruel act. The old man pointed directly at the target, urging him to release the arrow. He was getting impatient, demanding that our boy make his shot. But then the rabbit suddenly stopped thrashing and began to let out a sickening, human-like giggle. Its mouth twisted into a creepy, malicious grin. Lee Ha-yi froze, his eye widening in sheer horror as he stared at the giggling monster. The illusion was breaking, and he realized he was trapped in a nightmare. Suddenly, his mind wanders back to the very first day. He opened his eyes in this harsh new world. He remembers waking up trapped inside a dark, filthy cage, surrounded by other chained captives who had already given up on survival. Right next to him lay a cold, decaying corpse, completely abandoned on the floor and left to rot in the shadows. It was a truly wretched place where people were stripped of their humanity and treated worse than beasts. Back then, he did not know a single thing about surviving in the mountains or hunting dangerous monsters. But his memory quickly shifts to his first real challenge, a terrifying horned rabbit with glowing yellow eyes charging directly at him. The creature hissed with pure malice, displaying its razor-sharp fangs. Standing his ground in the forest, our protagonist drew back his bowstring, steadying his breath as he aimed directly at the incoming beast. With a sharp flick of his fingers, he released the arrow, sending it flying forward with incredible speed. The projectile sliced through the air in slow motion, locking onto the rabid monster as it leaped through the green brush. No room remained for error. In a flash, a violent spray of blood erupted across the trees as his arrow finally found its mark.